So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 7th edition of the Energy Efficiency Academy. This platform is designed to assist you in comprehending and applying the new Energy Efficiency Directive in Europe. It is a collaborative effort involving the Odyssey Muur project, the European Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, ECEEE, and Leonardo Energy, which is an initiative by the International Copper Association. And this is one of the active contributions that copper wants to bring in advancing the energy transition. Today, we journey to Sweden, where nationwide coverage of municipal energy and climate advices has been in place for almost 3 decades. Swedish Energy Counsellors provide free advice to the general public, to organizations, and to small and medium-sized businesses on all matters related to energy. They are highly regarded for their effectiveness in promoting energy efficiency, as our speakers today, Rurik Holmberg and Janina Hirsch, both analysts at the Swedish Energy Agency, will attest. So please join me in welcoming them, Janina and Rurik.
Yes, good morning, everybody. And my colleague Janina will tell you a little bit about the Municipal Energy and Climate Counsellors, which is considered a policy instrument and which we are quite proud of. It has been in place since 1997, and it has been reformed during the years, but basically it's the same idea ever since 1997, because we have seen that it functions quite well. Next slide, please. The purpose from the beginning has been to guarantee all inhabitants in all municipalities throughout Sweden an opportunity to get advice free of charge on energy and climate related issues. And the thought is that it has to be technologically and commercially neutral information. They're obliged to give it that way, in a neutral way. It has been criticized to some extent that they can actually never recommend anything particular, because they have to recommend all alternatives. But it has turned out that it's actually a minor issue after all, considering the bigger picture. And as I said here before, the system was created in 1997, but it has undergone several changes, actually in the direction that the councillors have been given more tasks. They are supposed to reach more, not only inhabitants, but also organizations, small businesses, and so on. But it's also, and I think, but I'm not sure about this, but I think that one idea has been also to create certain channels for the Swedish Energy Agency, which is in charge of the councillors, to reach out to make our policy well known throughout the country. And also to have experts spread in all municipalities, instead of having everybody here at the office of the Swedish Energy Agency. So it has been shown that it's more efficient to carry out policy measures when people are informed, that they are locally informed. And next slide, please. Here's a map of Sweden, and the point is to show that Sweden covers not only a large area, but also very different climate zones. So the very southern part of Sweden is basically, in a climate sense, similar to Central Europe. But the northern parts are subarctic. So already this requires quite different approaches to energy efficiency and also other energy related issues. Also, the country shows a great variety in geography. You have a mountainous area in the west. You have maritime conditions in the southwest, in the east. There are several inhabited islands, which is also a certain challenge for energy efficiency and energy issues. So there can be no one size fits all. And therefore, it is also important to have local knowledge of energy issues, but also knowledge of the conditions that exist locally. There are 290 municipalities, and the idea is to have one councillor for each municipality, and to a large extent that has worked well.
Next slide, please. Yeah, so almost all municipalities in Sweden have access to an energy and climate councillor. In total, 289 out of 290 municipalities have an energy and climate councillor. But it is common for smaller municipalities to share a councillor between themselves. And all 15 regional energy agencies are involved in the program. The councillors advise households, non-profit organizations, and small and medium enterprises about energy efficiency measures and renewable energy. And the councillors can give personal advice via telephone, email, or during a physical visit. Moreover, the councillors also have outreach tasks where they initiate contacts, such as visiting schools or visiting fairs, for example. And the training of the councillors are the responsibility of the Swedish Energy Agency, which is also financing them, but they are like technically employed by their local municipality. In some cases, the regional councillor has remained is consequently today a highly experienced professional in local energy issues. In other cases, new councillors have repeatedly been hired and trained. And all councillors have annual or more frequent occasions for further training or simply get together. Next slide, please. Yeah, so it is, of course, difficult to measure the impact of the councillors in terms of, for example, kilowatt hours saved, because they give advice to people who visit them voluntarily and who then may never hear from again. And we do not collect data to a large extent to prove how big impact the councillors do have. It is, as Rurik mentioned, important that there is someone neutral and that can give advice to customers. Yeah, however, the councillors do keep a record of how many people have paid a visit or have otherwise been advised. During 2015, 2023, a survey was sent out to individuals who have contacted the counselors and also to the counselors. And we can draw some conclusions from this survey, but it should be noted that the survey was sent out to a very limited group, and roughly half of the advice seekers who was contacted gave any feedback. So we cannot draw too big conclusions from this, but we can note that those who were asked and give feedback confirm that in general the counselor have had a positive impact on them. But what was said in the survey was that feedback from advice seekers confirmed that the contact contributes to increased knowledge and competence. The feedback also confirms that the contact does contribute to concrete measures and towards that advice seekers feel more secure in their decisions. And in general, you could see that people that seek advice and initiate contact themselves are more likely to take concrete action, while outreach tasks lead to increased knowledge and competence, which is not too surprising because the people who initiate contact are likely to be interested in taking concrete measures. Yeah, next slide, please.
I saw there was one question about specifically about the training of the counselors, and that is carried out by the Swedish Energy Agency, because they are the counselors out there in the municipalities. They are sort of our agents, so to speak, and so they will be kept up to date by the Swedish Energy Agency, which also organizes the training and well, whatever get together and so on, because it can be sometimes in some areas, especially, quite a lonely job, being the only energy expert somewhere in a distant municipality. So we try to get them together every now and then, so they can feel that they're not completely alone, and there are other people as well doing this. So I think it's very important for the motivation. Yeah, and well, since 1997, as I said in the beginning, a central component is that it has to be neutral information. So therefore, it was from the outset considered to be an appropriate way to guarantee this, that they are somehow connected to the municipalities and not, for instance, some commercial enterprise or whatever other solution there might have been, because in that case, of course, you would expect them, if that would have been the case, you would expect them to provide the information favorable of that commercial enterprise. So in order to avoid that, this solution was decided upon. But on the other hand, and I'm not sure about this, but please let me know that in Sweden, we tend to think that this solution is unique for us. But on the other hand, I'm not aware of what way other countries are carrying out, let's say, this information part of energy efficiency and other energy and climate issues. And it should be also highlighted, as I said, just that it's not only energy efficiency, although it's hugely important, but also climate issue, which was added later, I think, because initially they were only called energy counselors. There's also a phenomenon that in certain areas, the regions have attempted to coordinate the work between the municipal energy councillors. So there are regional energy offices which are not actually coordinated by us, but it's not a problem that they have this coordination function, because we're only happy if there is some regional activity which de facto supports us. And next slide, please. We know for sure that the councillors have a significant positive effect on energy efficiency, but we're not able to quantify this. We cannot tell how many kilowatt hours have been saved thanks to the councillors, and also it's very difficult to separate the energy efficiency activities from, let's say, renewables, because the energy councillors, let's take an example. They might recommend to somebody to install a heat pump, and well, they might never hear from that person again. Maybe they know that that person installed a heat pump, but it can't be counted exactly. And of course, this is a bit of a problem for us, because especially when it comes to the energy efficiency directive, when we're supposed to give an exact figure how much has been saved. And our dilemma is that we have a very efficient energy efficiency policy instrument in place, but we don't really know. We can guess something, and but it will be far off the mark, simply because it's a complicated web of actions that, for instance, this heat pump I mentioned, yeah, it might be installed maybe a couple of years later than the contact with the councillor was made. So it's not even clear that it was the advice of the councillor that led to the installment of the heat pump. So it's to a large extent it would be total guesswork if we would try to pinpoint the exact amount of energy efficiency. And the energy councillors also, and as I mentioned, heat pumps. In Sweden, very large number of heat pumps were installed in single-family houses in the beginning of 2010. I think at least at one point we were leading country in Europe in this, but correct me if I'm wrong. And it seems that a large part of this was thanks to the energy councillors, But once again, we can't be 100% sure. We can only assess or assume how the process went.
Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so renegotiated EU directives mean that there's an increased requirement for access to information and advice for actors such as households and small and medium-sized enterprises, as you all know. And the Swedish Municipal Energy and Climate Counsellors is an important channel in how we reach out with information and advice to these actors. And with this as a background, the Swedish government has requested that the Swedish Energy Agency analyze how the municipal energy and climate councillors can be developed with regards to the increased demands that is set in the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Renewable Directive. And we also noted that the directive on the performance of buildings also requires information and also have requirements on information and advice, and therefore this is also included in the investigation. And we were also asked to look over the current program regulations and suggest how the program can reduce vulnerability of house owners, organizations, and small and medium enterprises to, for example, high energy prices. So we are looking at this program, and we will see if there will be any smaller or like any changes due to these change in demands from EU. Yeah, that was what I have to say on that.
And I see that there's a question about the number of councillors per municipality, and this varies. Small municipalities tend to have one, even sometimes share. Yeah. While some bigger municipalities have several. I don't know.
Maybe I could answer. I don't have the exact numbers. I do not work with this program that directly, but I do know that how many councillors you have, or like how much funding you get for councillor, is based on how many inhabitants the municipality have. So it is weighted again, like the funding is weighted against the municipality's population. But we do not have. I saw like someone who in the chat that mentioned that they had like 200 in one area. We do not have that many. It's like a couple of people per municipality, I think. Maybe it's not too many people in general. Yeah.
And then we have the question of how do the councillors get information about new techniques? Is this arranged or by central organization? Yes, to a large part, but we can also assume that many councillors are very experienced people by now, and they are of course very capable of getting the information from various sources, and also various actors, producers, commercial enterprises, and so on. So it can be said that yes, we have the Swedish Energy Agency has an overall responsibility, but we are not the sole actor here in this sense, and many times the most experienced councillors are know more about the local situation than we by far.
Okay, Rurik, allow me just to jump in here, because indeed you already jumped in the questions, which is great. I just want to remind the audience, if you have further questions to Rurik and Janina, please put them in the Q&A window. I see that some people confuse the chat with the Q&A, which is normal. We know that this is an issue with Zoom, but please note that in the chat, we will not take your questions. So if you have a questions, make sure to put them in the Q&A. On the other hand, the chat is an interesting resource as well, because I see that many people are sharing their experiences. And I also see that we have an energy counselor from Sweden online, Silva Herman, already sharing some of the concrete experiences. So great to have you here, Silva. Thanks for joining us. Okay, let's then go to the next question. It's a question by Bledar Alyai. I probably pronounced that not correctly, but okay. The counselors, as per the name, are only for counseling, or do they also perform any other activity for the municipality? Also, how deep they dive into the suggestions they provide? Is there any cost optimality analysis involved, or is this just straight general information on energy efficiency?
Yeah, they. Let's see. I mean, they don't. In their role as counselors, which can be like full-time or 50%, and then they might have another role in the municipality. But in the role as counselors, they are only counselor. They are only giving counsel to like the target groups. They do not. The municipality itself is not a target group. If that was the question. Yeah. Yeah,
there was also a bit of a question on how deep they go in their advice. So is there cost optimality analysis involved as well?
They give personal advice, but it's not. I don't think they give like a super detailed cost optimality. I think they give general cost advice.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can this counselor system be considered a one-stop shop? Do they provide potential support at all points of the renovation chain?
I mean, one-stop shop is not really defined, so I don't think I'm able to give a concrete answer to that currently. Do they give potential support at all points of the renovation chain? They only give support to households, organizations, and small and medium enterprises, and they cannot give you concrete recommendations for like who you can contact. They need to give general advice. They cannot recommend you a certain entrepreneur or something like that. That's not really allowed.
Okay, thank you. And I like the question indeed, because one-stop shops in the recast are, of course, increasingly becoming important. I also know that there's some live co-funded projects on the one-stop shop, so maybe it's good that those projects can also look into the Swedish case and see how they can learn from the 3 decades of counselors already. Okay, next question. Is there any focus on specific needs in the subarctic regions and for some lower income families? That's 2 different questions, but okay. So what about specific requirements?
I'm not 100% sure, but I have the impression that here, this is a case where the regional coordination, which is not carried out by the Swedish Energy Agency, but the county administrative boards, and in the north and also in the mountainous areas, they coordinate because these activities regionally, because they are so specific, and there are some special challenges that they sort of develop this knowledge between themselves, where we cannot really. I mean, Swedish Energy Agency is situated not very far from Stockholm. This is not one of those areas, so we don't necessarily have the qualifications needed for this sort of advice, so they have to develop it themselves. Lower income families, this is a little bit difficult question in the sense that this whole topic is relatively new to Sweden. Not that we would not have low income families, we certainly do, but they have been, let's say, addressed by a totally different part of the administration. It's not the energy agency that is has not been responsible, but the social administration, and it is only in the past 2 or 3 years that this issue has been raised in Sweden in terms of energy. So I can't really answer that at this moment, whether this has also been brought up by the energy councillors.
Yeah, I know that they have gotten a lot more contact from lower income families or people who struggle with energy poverty during the energy crisis, but I don't think that they have currently have a specific focus on lower income families or energy poverty.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And indeed, I think there's also already an answer to another question by Sylvia Caneva as well, who also asked if there were any specific actions to support the households facing energy poverty. And indeed, I think it's very, very pertinent questions about the link between energy poverty and energy efficiency, which pops up every now and then during our webinars. So thanks for those questions. Okay, let's go to the next question, which is again a great question, a link with the public policies that really support and in a sense interact positively most with the councillor system in Sweden. And also on the other hand, which policies, energy or like social policies, mitigate or reduce their impact?
This is a difficult question because in a way the councillors operate independently in each municipality. I don't think that they have a huge impact on policy making in big municipalities, but I wouldn't be surprised. But this once again, I'm not sure, but I can assume that in smaller municipalities, their opinion might be seriously taken into account. Of course, on a national level, they don't have that impact because they are functioning within municipalities, not national level. So so here we have a situation where they might, but here we have in the audience a person who's a councillor, so maybe it would be interesting to hear an opinion about this issue from that person. Is it okay?
Sorry, I had troubles to unmute myself. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm checking if I can unmute Silva, and also, of course, checking if it's okay. Okay, Silva, you are unmuted now, so
Okay.
you could comment
Hello.
on that.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, I would say, of course, if there's, for example, a new funding system, then we get a lot of more questions, both how to access the funding and also how to use it. So that would be a positive interaction. And that was also what happened in the beginning of the 2000s until 2010. We have a support system for households with direct electric heating. They could switch to heat pumps or district heating. And that was also a reason why we as councillors had, I think, a significant impact, because we could help people to understand the funding, to choose the right new heating system, and so on and so on. So I think in that sense, there is an interaction. Then, of course, everything what helps from a governmental, federal, state level to reduce energy use has an impact on the real results on a local level. That would be true even for things like if there is a policy for in the transport sector, it would impact how many people are asking us. If it becomes more expensive due to taxes or whatever to drive a fossil fuel car, people will come and ask us about alternatives, and so on and so on. So I think it's more from that angle. If there's funding or if there are costs, and they might come from the federal level, then people will be more interested in alternatives and will easily come to us and ask for advice.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Silva. And maybe while you're still online, I see that Anna Borakowska has a question. If there are special subsidy programs, do the councillors also provide advice on those subsidies?
Yes,
do they help with the application? Okay.
We do, but for example, there are also regional authorities, the county councils, for example, which are kind of the regional representation of the federal government, and often they have also a responsibility to help people access the funding programs. So that is probably like a shared responsibility, I guess. You guys from Swedish Energy Agency, would you agree with me on that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, Silva, if you won't mind, please just stay online. And if you want to intervene, just raise your hand, and then I know that you have. Okay. Let me combine two questions about the neutrality. So Saverio asks, in practical terms, how do the councillors ensure neutrality when presenting solutions, especially the renewable solutions? And there was another question by Aris Mamisiulas, which I think is already answered, but okay. Are councillors independent? For example, are they not selling commercially available proposed equipment?
The councillors are independent. They do not sell commercially or proposed equipment from specific companies. They might give a general advice to a household. And yeah, I mean, that's supposed that they are supposed to ensure neutrality as well. They're not supposed to give advice on like specific companies. I'm not too sure about like any deeper than that on how they ensure neutrality. Do you know, Rudy?
Yeah, because when the system was introduced in 1997, it was really stressed that it has to be free of charge and neutral information. And at least some years ago, I heard one councillor complaining a little bit that it's quite difficult when you yourself have your preferences and then you act in a neutral way. But still, I think this is a minor problem. So, but if we go by the book, then they are completely neutral.
Okay, I see Silva raised her hand, so
I think that's I don't think that it is too much of a problem to be relatively neutral, but it is a problem in that sense that people coming to us and asking for advice, they are actually not always interested in listening to a very general, like, you should look for that and that and that, but they are looking for someone telling them you should do this or that. And specifically in small municipalities, I'm here in northern Sweden where we have long distances and the energy service system is very little developed. Then it's also that it's difficult to find companies to help you with solar or whatever. So people are really interested in getting that advice and getting that concrete help, and not able to give that is a barrier for us in the practical daily work, so to say. But it's not difficult to do it, to be, I think, advising in a very general way. But it would help if we could be more to the point, which we are not allowed to.
No, I understand, but interesting insight. Okay, great, thanks. Let me jump to this question by Peter Vedres to Rurik and Janina, I guess. Is the network of councillors considered as an alternative policy measure in the ED? So are you planning to report the savings of the councillors program under the Article 8 of the ED? You already commented on the difficulty to calculate those savings, but is this somewhere in the reporting? And do you have any thoughts on how to calculate the impact of the program and define the energy savings? I see you looking to each other, Rurik and Janina. Who's taking it?
The short answer would be no and no, but
Okay.
Let me elaborate a little bit. As I said before, the activity of the councillors cannot really be measured in kilowatt hours. It can be measured in many other ways, but not in the sense that we would need for Article 8 of the Energy Efficiency Directive. And we have been trying to measure it, or we have made attempts to measure it also in this way in terms of kilowatt hours. But when we did it some years ago, we ended up with completely unreliable figures. We didn't believe ourselves in those figures we came up with. So there was actually no way to use it. And of course, we would be happy to add the effect of the work of the councillors to our savings according to Article 8, but we can't do it in a way that we ourselves would approve. So it remains basically outside the calculation.
Okay.
But we have tried. We have tried to find a way, but came up with basically nothing in this respect. And also, if I look at the previous question here, if we can see the overall pattern of consumption in a municipality, yes, but it depends on so many other things. So we can't really, because all energy use is dependent on so many other factors that we can't really say that this is the impact of the councillors.
Mhm, mhm.
But I
It's a question of
understand this
attribution.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a question of attribution, of course. Yeah, I can imagine that Sweden is probably not the only member state struggling with that. So I could imagine that it's at least worth a discussion in a concerted action meeting or something to see how one should calculate or at least materialize those savings. And indeed, if you say, Rurik, that you wouldn't believe yourselves, then it's even harder to make the Commission believe you. So let's not go into that route. Okay, thanks. We still have a few open questions and 10 minutes to go, so that's perfect. Yeah, maybe a bit aside of the mere work of the councillors itself, but Wandril Henrot wants to know if Sweden also has issues with heat waves now, and if you plan to take measures to adapt the building stock to these new issues. A bit off topic maybe, but okay, let's see how you can answer.
I mean, we have less issues with heat waves than cold weather. I mean, we do have heat waves, but it's more cold weather.
At present, there's a cold wave.
I'm not too sure about whether or not we plan to take measures to adapt to the building stock to heat waves. Do you know?
The building stock in general is regulated by the Housing Board of Sweden and the energy use per square meter. So and it has been since I think 1970s or 1980s. So it's quite long running that this has been regulated. But it has very little to do with the energy advisors, because it's a completely different part of the administration.
But I see that Silva raised her hand, so maybe Silva, you want
that was a mistake, but
oh.
I can also only tell that this morning we had -24 outside, okay. So that was not really a heat wave. But with that said, we get actually questions about it's mostly the bigger buildings. There are pretty advanced regulations for ventilation and indoor climate in Sweden, and it's a significant part of the energy use in buildings, cooling and ventilation actually, and it gets more and more. So we got some questions about it because in the Arctic region climate change is going pretty fast. We have above 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial level in our region. So yes, we got some questions at least.
Climate mitigation. Maybe Silvan, now we have you.
No, more adaptation, because it's
sorry,
so
adaptation. Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry, yeah. Thanks for correcting me. Yeah, that's what I meant. Silva, maybe a nasty question, but since we have you online, it's Bleda wants to know what is the difference between you and ChatGTP. So would we ask ChatGTP what's the difference?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I would say as ChatGPT gets better and better, I don't know about the future. but right now I think it's anyway, you have more trusted information. ChatGPT can tell you whatsoever in worst case. And I can also only tell for our region, but in general, our customers are elderly people. So I don't think they would use it to a very large extent, right now at least. And then we also do energy inventory. We are visiting companies, we are visiting housing associations, we are visiting associations, and go around in their building and tell them very specific where they can look into. And we are also helping them, that's one of my favorite things to do, to analyze their specific energy, mostly electricity use. So we check the electricity use data hour by hour, and see whether we find interesting, patterns, and help them by that to really understand their electricity use. And we know by experience that people following up their electricity use tend to use about 10% less, even without investments and even without doing something very specific, just by adapting and understanding the electricity use. And I don't think that ChatGPT can do that, because you need to log into your specific company as an electricity provider.
Okay, I think that's clear. So no ChatGPT for the moment. Let's stick to the real counselors. You already touched on the fact that many of your customers are elderly people. Question by Louisa is related to that. So how is the relation between the counselors and older people? Is there any advice to enhance the benefits for elderly specifically? And then again, the relation with energy poverty.
To whom?
Yeah, and I was maybe Silva. I was asking you because you already
Okay.
mentioned that.
Well,
Yes.
I think one reason, because if we look into who is getting in touch with us, and I think that's probably true for all of Sweden, but I know best about my own area. That's anyway private households actively contacting us. And yeah, to have a house, you need probably you have a family or you are a little bit elder. So that's one reason for that. So then I don't think that we have any specific guidelines or so touching on the aspect of how to deal with younger or family or elder people or so. But what I think actually, what is an interesting aspect and which I would like to look more into, that is the connection between energy poverty and elder people. And the reason is that I think, at least for the more rural areas in Sweden, that there are pretty many older people, often women, living in their own house, out in the countryside maybe, which is far too big for them now, because the children, there are no children, the husband might have died, and they have a big house and not so much money in the pension money. So I think there we might have really a little bit an energy poverty problem, which probably is not so much addressed, because I guess this type of woman don't ask for any social benefit money or so. So I think that might be an area where Sweden should have, where we might need to look into, I think.
Yeah, energy poverty has not previously been a big question in Sweden, as we mentioned earlier, and we have not really identified who the target group for energy poverty would be. So yeah, we don't have any concrete measures towards these households as of now.
Maybe not yet, because in the EED recast, of course, this is gaining attention.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be more of a question.
Great. I think we have one question left, because 2 other entries are more like thanking you all for your answers, including you, Silva. So great. Wandril also mentioned some experiences from France. So have a look at it. So let's close this session with the final question, which is already touched a bit upon, but maybe if Evgeny wants to know more details, how the councillors exactly are paid. So how the municipalities and regions gather together to pay the councillors. Because in Moldova, they have energy managers on the regional level and the regions struggle paying for them. So how does Sweden solve this?
They apply for financing from the Swedish Energy Agency, and we get specific funds from the government towards these. So it's publicly funded.
Okay.
They're employed by the municipalities, but the money comes from the Swedish Energy Agency.
Well, yeah, but actually, as the money specifically for the funding for the smaller municipalities have diminished, it's actually, I think, like getting very relevant that municipalities need to back up the government funding now. Otherwise, it's not possible for the smaller municipalities in some cases, if you don't collaborate with a lot of municipalities to employ one councillor.
Great, we reached the hour and we are through our list of questions. I think this was a really interesting debate and discussion for today. So again, thank you a lot, Janina Hirsch and Rurik Holmberg from the Swedish Energy Agency for your contributions today. Also to Silva, who was appointed maybe unexpectedly as one of our speakers today, but great contributions from you as well. Thanks a lot. And thanks to all the people in the audience for the great questions. Again, have a look on the website where you can find recordings of all the past sessions and where you can also register for the next session in this series on the public buildings, which will dive into the Italian case. So make sure you register. The session is on April 17th, same hour, so 10 a.m. Brussels time. So I wish you all a great continuation of your day, and we see each other in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.